So going to be leading our conversation today. We're gonna dig into some AI use cases around holidays, and just the growing AI use cases in general across the CX industry, especially this past year or so. It's really grown. I wanted to give a quick thank you to Support Driven, who we partnered up with for today's conversation. They have a great leadership expo happening in Chicago in October. If you're attending our webinar today, you've been automatically entered in to win a ticket, part of our drawing that will be announced, I think, September 6th. We'll send out more information in the chat for anybody else who's interested in sharing the ticket giveaway link with their coworkers, friends, peers in the space. But yeah, so we have two amazing leaders here with us today. We have Lauren from Tony's, and then we have Ashley here, who's led some amazing companies like Hungry Root, Helix. I'll let them kick off quick intros. Ashley, if you want to start us.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I have been working in support CX, some version of it, for my entire post-college adult life, mostly at startups, like early growth, fast-paced startups. In particular for this conversation, Paperless Post and Hungry Root and Helix kind of give me the kind of best insight for dealing with holidays and volume spikes and keeping people happy and actual personalization. Yeah, that's me.
Lauren?
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Cooper. I am the Director of Global Customer Happiness for Tony's. And if you're unsure of what Tony's is, it is a screen-free audio listening device for children. And we can be found in Walmart, Target, Amazon, your local toy store, and online. My experience primarily is in direct-to-consumer businesses, in apparel, or now in consumer electronics such as Tony's. So I am a customer service or customer happiness lifer, and so I've been doing this my entire career.
Amazing. And I know both of you through your careers have seen big technology changes happen throughout the industry. And I think AI, of course, has been the one to take over the last couple of years, going hand in hand with automation as well, right? So I'm really excited to dig into this today. I think especially going into what's probably the biggest known holiday season, not necessarily the only holiday season, as Ashley can attest to, given her different experiences across furniture brands and such. But we're really looking forward into digging into, the use cases of AI, how it comes up in teams, especially before big peak seasons, and ways to really introduce it, that it's going to be an impactful, measurable experience for the team. So what I'd like to do is just dig into, depending on the team that you've been at, where they're at growth stage wise, industry wise, the ways to focus on AI and how to roll it out, whether it's helping to manage, high volumes, if you're looking at it from an analytics and metrics standpoint, or if you just want to deliver on a better customer experience overall. I think there's a lot of use cases here. So Lauren, I know you come obviously from a team that's going to be highly impacted by this upcoming holiday season, holidays with Christmas and toys, big one for the kiddos. How are you all typically planning ahead of like a holiday ramp season like this? And, when you think of AI coming into play for Tony's, like how are you kind of approaching it and like looking into use cases for your team specifically?
I think the biggest thing for me, and you really nailed it right there, Tony's is a highly seasonal business. While there are children being born every day and we have birthdays every day, our Q4, and particularly our Christmas holiday, is where we do the bulk of our business and see the bulk of our ticket volume in our inbox. And with that said, we have essentially 9 months of the year to know what's coming for us. So planning. Like starting now, I just had a huge session with my team last week where we planned all of our Q4 and our staffing and our headcount and what we need to do to audit our automations and make sure that they're top tier. And I think that's probably my biggest suggestion, is giving yourself the buffer to plan and really have a concise agenda on hand, and what are we trying to achieve here at, in season, without having a backlog, without disrupting Christmas Day for the millions of customers that we have, and the little listeners, as we call them, all over the world that are, getting a Tony box from Santa, we want them to have a great experience on the 25th. And if we're not properly planned, we're not going to be able to make that happen.
100%. And I know in conversations we've had outside of this today, like, we talked about the balance of, executives wanting to introduce AI into the organization, and how do we balance that out with the goals and metrics you've outlined, of course, leading up to, the big time of year. Like, how do you find the balance between what execs want from AI and like what you think the customer desire is for AI today?
I think like for me and like we at Tony's, we're really new getting into the AI space. We're right at the start of this journey into AI, and we're like kids ourselves. Like we're like in the preschool age of AI, and everything is new and bright and shiny and exciting. And I think that's what a lot of like the C-suite has in their minds as well. It's yeah, it's new, it's exciting. And I think with everyone, you want to be the first, and you want to go to market with it, and you want to, you want to really be part of that, unveiling. And I think something that I've learned that I've really taken with me is with AI, it's such a huge space, and it's okay to start small and pick the one piece or the one section within AI that you want to focus on, and really focus on that. And for us, that's within our live chat and messaging field and deflection and routing. And so you pick this one piece and you start small and allow yourself to be okay with making a mistake. This is what testing is for. And if you're like me from a company that is in hyper growth, I employ team that's also learning AI on the job. And so giving grace to, make mistakes and fail, but, have that freedom to do it, I think has been really important. And I think overall, it's the sentiment of crawl, walk, run. We're crawling. We're going to get there. I'm excited myself. I want to launch, but the smart way for us is to pick the one, focus on that, and really take our times getting there.
I do think like being okay with failing is often a novel experience, especially in startups, because you want to get everything right away. Especially in support, you don't want to accidentally create a bad experience for your customers. But if you're really on top of things and paying attention, you can catch those experiences really quickly and adjust. You just have to remember that the failures are just learning experiences, apologize, and move on quickly.
Ashley, for you, as you've introduced automation and different variations of AI to your teams, what Lauren just mentioned of like learning as you're using it and going, like how have you found that to work out for your team? And like, have you come up with any interesting use cases like while you're in the hot seat of like, okay, we got it for this purpose, but how else can we take advantage of it? Especially as like, I think the use cases for AI continue to grow as far as like capabilities and such.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to understand is that there are AI tools for different things. And I think a thing that I've seen happen with C-suites is that they just want an AI tool, and you kind of have to dig in and ask like, well, what's the problem that we're trying to solve with it? And help them identify problems that you're actually having so that you're getting the right tool to solve those problems, versus just getting a tool that maybe doesn't solve any of the problems and maybe makes new ones. But when I first started with this, the goal was to remove a pretty serious bulk of volume of self-serviceable inbounds. Subscription services have a lot of self-serviceable inbounds, a lot of Wizmo, which can be self-serviceable or might actually need someone to dig into. If you don't know, Wizmo is where's my order. So anyone who's shipping things, you get those tickets all the time. And just how do I change my subscription and how do I pause it and things like that. And when I first went into that, I think the conversation that I had with my AE was that like, you're just going to get rid of all of your Wizmo tickets, which was not true. And what happened was we got rid of a lot of the anxiety questions that people have about, this is like at Hungry Root, like what's going to come in my box? Can I choose things? And we had gotten used to being very hands-on and personal with those kinds of inbounds, because that felt right. Like talking to someone who's vegan to make sure that they're not going to get meat or any other kind of animal products in their box. We had taken that as the goal of being really personal with those interactions. But what happened is that people were able to find those articles so much faster because the tool was serving them up to them, and they were just reading, and it meant that conversion was happening faster. We were retaining people because they could find answers faster. And then our team could spend more time on those Wismo tickets, which turned out to be better because we got our inbound rate down 50% with that tool. And we spent so much time checking in with FedEx and UPS, like, hey, we know there's a snowstorm happening. Can you just give us an update on like what trucks are doing? And it was a huge boost to our CSAT in that kind of situation. This is food that people are relying on, and food is a very sensitive conversation for people. You plan your entire week around this. If you're going to go to a restaurant, if you're going to cook, etc. If you don't have to cook, because that was the point of Hungry Root. But I think the most interesting thing that I've got out of using the AI tools is like going in with a very specific plan. This is what I want to solve. And finding that it solves another problem you weren't quite expecting, and shifting your perspective on what requires personalization versus what doesn't.
Yeah. No, I think that's part of the interesting thing I've had with a lot of teams I've been talking with today is, there's a variation of things AI can solve for. And I think as you dig into use cases, like more things bubble up of where AI will have impacts across the organization. And that, like whether that's recognizing a product issue and that something you could report to product more quickly than you could have in the past, like noticing a trend in certain topic issues. I think an example we had recently with a customer of ours was, people were getting blue mushrooms and they were kind of worried, like, is this safe to eat? And, that was something that maybe otherwise like were just one-off questions customer support agents would be answering. And they ended up finding out and detecting this surge in volume around blue mushrooms that they were able to reach out to the supplier, hey, it's safe. It's just how they came out this time of year. Feel free to eat it away and do your thing. But yeah, I think there's different things that bubble up that have implications across the rest of the organization, whether that's good or bad, that you can dig into from having a good AI tool in place. I think CX and support are usually kind of the first ones to start getting that customer feedback, and that's valuable across the org. I almost wonder too, something we dig into with a lot of, conversations is like, is the deflection more important than the CSAT? Like what kind of impacts are we looking to get out of what we use AI for? Like like you said, like what are we trying to solve for? Like what's our main, goal here? I just wonder for you all too, like when you initially introduced AI and automation across customers, it sounded like they had a pretty good, response to it, and like the use cases of it were accepted. Do you ever see like customers are more excited to get a faster response time or get their issues resolved more quickly versus like the personal human touch that they have grown used to in years past? Or how do you balance that?
I think that's a really great question, and something that I think about often. I am lucky enough to work for, again, a children's toy company. And so there's a whimsy and a playfulness to my brand that's already kind of layered into how we do things. And it's really important for me to maintain that through the entire experience. And I never want to lose that. And I think that's one of those big question marks with like introducing like a bot or, something into your chat flow where that can be removed or you lose that personal touch. And how I have tried to reconcile it, CSAT has always been one of my favorite KPIs, in our industry. But deflection is just as important, and perhaps the best customer service you could ever receive is none at all when you can help yourself. My clientele they're working parents or caregivers or adults that they are busy and they are looking for quick answers to help the child in their life use our product. And there is certainly a sense of urgency there. So, removing like the hi, how are you? Or how's everyone doing today might not necessarily be needed. However, you can remove that and layer in maybe another little personal touch, such as an emoji or like a happy listening is something that we say that, I think feels personal, even though we could build it into like the AI intents, but it's still there. And it's still showing that there is a human behind it at some capacity. And we are working towards getting your problem solved. I think it's definitely a balance.
For sure. I almost wondered too, because I know, there's a lot that's changing in AI and the capabilities, to match customer and brand voice, to recognize sentiment. How are you all, I know it's a newer kind of introduction to the AI space, but actually like in past AI and automation use cases, like where do you picture like the value of the sentiment tagging and how to use that within your team?
I think it's huge. I think the place that I've used it most is like social listening and being able to see when people are getting frustrated and getting that stuff right into our inbounds so that we can investigate and just figure out what's going on as fast as possible and get that information to product or engineering or marketing, whoever needs it, to make quick changes. On our side, it's usually not so much something support related that needs handling. You definitely want to engage with people who are creating that sentiment, those inbounds with those specific sentiments. But the biggest value that I get out of it is that I'm not waiting an hour to finally see 10 tickets that are the same thing. I've got something bubbling up to me. Like you've got like 10, 15 people in the queue who are all saying this one thing about this one thing. Investigate it now. It just makes you so much faster. And you can get on top of things faster, especially holiday season. So many things can go wrong so fast at the same time. If you're like digital based, like maybe a server went down and there's nothing alerting you to it, but customers can't do the thing that they're expecting to be able to do. And in the past, I feel like it would have taken us like 20, 30 minutes to figure that out. And now with something like a sentiment analysis that can bubble that up quickly, we're going to see it immediately. We can get that to our IT quickly to deal with it. And I think I just had a terrible flashback about holiday season about like getting DDoS and things crashing like during the holidays when it's like your biggest time of year, and just not having tools that can help you make quick decisions. It feels so good to now have tools that can help you do that. And I think today's customer base expects that. They expect almost like instantaneous help, which I understand, because I think as a industry or like support in general, we've set that expectation for them by using tools and depending on what we say when we email them back. But at the same time, I think customers are often frustrated when we put these tools in front of them to kind of save us some time and we haven't done the due diligence to set them up correctly. So they're getting more and more frustrated. Even just this week, over the last couple of weeks, there have been multiple articles about like people don't want to reach out to support anymore. People don't want to interact with your chatbots. And it's mostly because we're just not setting them up right. And it just takes time and understanding what problem you're trying to solve for, setting it up right, and setting expectations for your customers that like, I think the transparency of telling someone this is a chatbot and this is how this is going to work for you until you get to me is huge for a customer. They just want you to tell the truth and don't want you to hide behind things. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as consumers on the other side of it, we've all been stuck in those endless like automation cycles where we're like, just get me to a live agent. Or, this is another FAQ article that's not answering the question I asked, just it feels endless and it's frustrating. So, I think that's something else, especially like Lauren, thinking of your team as you all like look into AI and the best ways to implement it and like the use cases of it for your team specifically and your customers, right? Is like, how do we step one into it? Like, where's step two here? And then what's step three look like? I think you build off the wins with AI and like your customers get more familiar with it and you can report on these wins back to the executives who really wanted AI. There's a lot of, I think, balancing you all are doing as CX leaders, right? When it comes to being like one of the first industries truly getting the most use cases out of what AI and automation can do. Is like walking that fine line between like, all right, what has the best organizational impact or return on investment? What gives my customers maybe a better experience than we had today? Or like for your team and Tony's, like, how do we improve CSAT even further? We're already really good at it, but how can we take it up another level? Or like maybe reduce average handle time, or all these things that maybe are more important to your agent's experience too. There's a lot of balancing, I think, on how you roll it out, the first initial approach to it, and then the building off of the success. I know we kind of talked about the sentiment pieces here of like the AI rollouts that continue to grow and make it a better experience on the back end. I almost wonder too, like analytics wise, just given the topics we were just covering, you know, like the things you can report on, the issues you get alerted to more quickly than before. Like when you think of analytics across AI, like what are some things that you would either you've seen today as a leader that you really like that have helped you, or what are you like hoping to see in the future from AI analytics as a whole?
I would say, like, for me, like, again, like, I'm really just at the start, and it's with analytics, it's like all about the data that's going into it. And I think like something that truthfully I'm really excited to see is like the harsh truth of what this data tells us. You know, I think you can go in expecting to see elements that you're like, oh yeah, I want to see how this increases deflection or agent handling time or improves CSAT, or, you know, all of these kind of core industry standards. But what is this data telling us that like maybe that might not be so sunny and bright? And then using that and taking that to kind of build on and see how you can improve the customer or agent experience, you know, using those data analytics. I think like if, you know, it's highlighting like the not so savory things that really help you improve that overall experience.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think
Ashley,
it's important to remember that the tool is also supposed to be helping our team. It's supposed to be helping the agents as well. And I think that's something that the C-suite doesn't think about as much. It's mostly if they think about it as a tool to get customers help faster. But I think an interesting piece of data that I got out of this, it mostly just changed how I had to look at a data point, which was touches, like the number of touches on a ticket. And that was a metric that I tracked because I wanted that number to get lower. Because what we were finding, and I'm sure everyone has had this experience, the more touches you get on a ticket, the more frustrated a customer gets, the lower the CSAT of that interaction is going to be. I have very controversial feelings about CSAT that we don't have to talk about today. But once we got the tools implemented and people were finding like the self-serve answers that they needed faster, our touch numbers weren't changing on the number of touches, but the CSAT on them were changing because we were getting more touches on tickets for different reasons, not because they were frustrated, but because they felt comfortable enough to reach out again in a small amount of time before that ticket closed to ask another question. And so we were seeing CSAT go up on higher touch tickets because people were getting more help than they maybe intended to get in the first place. They were just comfortable reaching out. And like I said, most people don't want to talk to support. I don't want to talk to support. This is my job. I still don't want to do it. I'd rather help myself. But when I do reach out and the experience is really good, I feel so much better about being able to reach out and get the help that I need. So that was a really interesting thing that I found, that it can, depending on how you're implementing it and what you're implementing it for, it might change how you read certain data points and what they actually mean to your team as far as quality and success goes.
yeah. I think there's some really good takeaways from our conversation today. I know we're coming up on the half-hour mark, so I want to leave some time for Q&A while we have you both here. One thing I wanted to quickly ask you all, just ahead of this upcoming holiday season, what would be your like big piece of advice to teams who are either using AI today or looking into it, for, you know, the exploratory pieces or best use cases out of it ahead of a big ramp season?
I would say test it every day. Just test it every day. Because, and just like be aware of what's changing in your organization, what products are changing, what services are changing, and make sure that anything that your tool is showing to your customers that is setting expectations is ready to set those expectations earlier than I think you might do it, because you want people to be ready before the thing happens. So like if you know that your team is going to be shorter staffed than usual and it's going to take longer to respond, let people know like 2-3 weeks in advance so that they're not caught off guard when they reach out and it takes way longer than usual to respond. And just be on the same calendar as your marketing team and your product team as far as sales and everything goes, so that you are updating that tool as they're updating promo codes and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, very aligned with what Ashley is saying here. Is very much like the contingency planning. We have a backlog playbook on what to do, making sure that that is up to date and ready. And then also, yeah, test it and allocate your staffing resources accordingly. You want to make sure that, you know, we're not also burning out our teams by having them answer tickets or be knowledge managers and then, oh, get in this AI piece and now fix it. It's like allocating the right resources and taking care of your team to give them the space to get in there and get on top of it without kind of overwhelming them and burning them out. And so I think it's that constant eye on it that also helps escalate to the other channels where there does need to be corrections made.
Good stuff. Yeah. Planning. I think that's the big takeaway ahead of this big ramp season. Awesome. Well, I want to open it up to any questions from our attendees here. If anybody has any, feel free to drop them into the chat section, and we'll be more than happy to answer. Hey, don't be shy, people. I guess while we wait for some people to drop in some questions, actually, I was curious too. Like, I know we talked about like there's variations in like what holiday season is depending on the industry. When you were at Helix, I imagine like the ebbs and flows for, you know, the famous Memorial Day weekend sales, 4th of July sales, Labor Day weekend sales. Like, how does your team address the ebbs and flows that come with those, you know, one-off holidays a couple of times a year?
I think Paperless Post set me up for this really well because every holiday has a card, and we had our peaks every few months, a couple times a quarter. Like it was Christmas and then Mother's Day and then Valentine's Day. And I think I learned in that situation that just having a holiday playbook was just going to be the best situation for me. Like I was mentioning before, being aligned with your marketing team and understanding when sales are coming. They know when sales are coming. They do the same time every year. Just make sure that you also know and that it's part of your playbook. Understand what bank holidays your company takes off and have it in your playbook. Who usually takes time off? What's your team going to be like as far as staffing goes, so that you can be really transparent with your customers about like, this is what our turnaround time is, and being transparent about like, I know you're asking us to do this thing for you, but we literally can't do it until next week because the printer is closed for the next 5 days. We can't do this thing until they open again. Please be patient with us. But for Helix, which is a little different, when your furniture is hard because it's big and it's expensive, and when people aren't satisfied, you make crazy decisions during holiday sales. We all do. It feels weird to make wild decisions on expensive furniture, but it still happens. And when you have like a guaranteed return policy, you have to understand the logistics of like return operations for support during holiday season. For a large piece of furniture kind of item is just different than anything else. So like having a specific playbook to help people understand this service is closed today, so we can't do it today, but we'll get this running immediately was the most important. So just understanding how all of your operations work around holidays, especially bank holidays where FedEx or UPS is not delivering on that day. is an important part of your playbook, and just getting that information in there so you're not surprised when you go to do a thing for someone that you've maybe already promised them that you would do, or it's part of the brand's promise that you're going to do this for them. Just like make sure like you set expectations for yourself so that you can set expectations for customers better.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, it looks like we didn't have any questions pop into the chat. But if anybody wants to follow along or add you all, are they able to do so on LinkedIn or anything along those lines where they can, see your all's output as leaders?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, and then also I'm part of the support-driven community, so can be reached via Slack.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm in support-driven and Elevate CX, and I know some of you already signed up, but I run the Professional Helpers weekly job drop newsletter that sends out every Monday to get jobs in your inboxes for people who are looking for new roles.
100%. Awesome. Well, I hope everybody got some value out of our conversation today. Again, thank you to the support-driven community for partnering up with us to host this great webinar. If anybody has any additional questions, please ask us in the support-driven feed or follow along on Codif's LinkedIn page for more information as we get into the holiday ramp season. And then, yeah, Ashley, Lauren, thank you both so much for joining us this morning and your inputs. Super valuable. Excited to continue to follow along in your AI journeys the rest of the year. But thank you, everybody. We'll see you again soon for our next webinar.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.